It happened on the New Year's Day, and I was at my friend's house and playing some video games. And after that, I was feeling very nauseous and sweaty and dizzy. I went to see my general practitioner, who did the some of the regular checkup, and he did not have any suspicions, but he anyways recommended me to visit a cardiologist. They couldn't do the stress ECG because my normal ECG came abnormal, and they recommended me that to come back on next week, and if there's any symptoms again, then go to the ER immediately. On Monday night that happened, I felt a little bit of palpitations, so we went to the ER and they took the ECGs, which came again abnormal. But next day, they did the echocardiogram. That's where my condition was the first diagnosis of my heart condition. His opinion was not to worry. This is the most common genetic heart condition, and most of the people who have that condition, they live their normal life. They don't even know. So about the communication of risk about HCM, the condition that I have, it was quite frustrating at times because of the variance in the risk communication or as related by different doctors. But he was very dismissive about don't go online because there is very skewed kind of information available. On the other hand, we met the other doctors who said, well, you shouldn't be waiting about anything and go and get the ICD because it's quite risky to be going around with this, knowing that you have this condition and not having the ICD and subjecting yourself to the risk of sudden cardiac arrest. Yeah, about the family history, I had one of my mom's first cousin who died when he was 20. He was pretty athletic. He played sports, and he just died suddenly, and we don't know what was the cause. My first cousin, who's in Virginia, is 11-year-old right now. At the time of birth, he had heart problems, and based on the notes that we have, he may have had the cardiac arrest at the time of birth, and they had to resuscitate him, and he is being constantly monitored with an external defibrillator, because I think because of his size at this point he cannot get the ICD, I guess. So we'll see. So he has some problem, and my aunt's the first son was delivered. He did not as a blue baby, and we suspect that he probably had the similar condition as well. We don't have the diagnosis. So those are some of the things. On my father's side, there is some inverted T's in the ECGs, which indicates that I have probably inherited from his side. So after going through the whole family history, they also recommended to have the genetic testing done. The one mutation was identified, but for my cousin, even though his case is quite severe since his birth, they could not catch his. So even if my one mutation has been identified, but according to the geneticist, this is not the only cause for my condition. So unfortunately, they do not recommend that for my offsprings, because even if they have this mutation or if they don't have this mutation, it's not going to change their prognosis. They're going to still be having to do the regular screenings every year and a half. And there were like 5 or 6 risk markers in HCM. I had partially 2 of them, and if you have even a single one, you are recommended to have the ICD. And once it was confirmed, then it was about calculating whether I should have the ICD or not. That was the main question for me. And for that, I need to find out what are my risk factors involved and what is the predictability of this particular condition, HCM. There was one type of patients who have a black and white answer. You have to get this. And I fell into the other one in which it was like my risk was more than 50%. So that was a hard thing for us. It was dealing with uncertainty in diagnosis. I went to, of course, online. First of all, that's Google. Mr. Google is, Professor Google is very nice in that sense. So I did a lot of analysis. So I went to the different heart society websites. There is a particular user group and website for a particular condition that I have. Their website was helpful. Here in genetics, it's just too technical for a person who's not in that field to understand all the intricacies involved. Even though I'm well cognizant of the fact that there are still every test has some false positives and false negatives. So of course this applies here too. And when they already communicated that there was 50% chance of catching the mutation even if it exists, so it was not very methodical. So I was not really having a lot of hope, so to speak, on the results of genetic testing, that that's going to magically do something. It was very clear since the beginning, and I asked that question before the genetic testing as well. Is this going to have any change in the prognosis? And they said no. Yeah, there is no way of reversing it. There is no way of treating it. It's just a precautionary device that I already sort of went through. So genetic testing did not have anything to do with that. It was probably somebody else in my shoes may not have even gone through that. I mean, there were a lot of people who were reluctant, even in our extended families. Whenever you talk about genetics, they like sort of repulse a little bit. In my case, I think pretty much all the doctors were very open about the fact that HCM is we don't have much data to tell you whether you will be experiencing a cardiac arrest in 1 year, in 5 years, in 10 years, or not in your lifetime. So it's very unpredictable. So they were very upfront about that. So that I like, instead of sort of giving some other manipulated information. So I think that I like that piece, that they were very open, upfront about that. They don't know what they don't know. So that was good. Yeah. So anyways, to find out, and then after all this recommendations, me and my wife sat together and discussed about all this, and we decided to go ahead with the ICD.